And working at the Historical Society, we do get a number of interesting calls. And somebody called and asked me, they said they wanted to talk to me about the history conference, and I said, great. And they said, well, I'm interested in coming, but do you think there will be any facts there? And I said, well, if there aren't any facts there, we're all in a world of hurt. So let's hope there will be some facts there. So I'm going to talk about a few kind of random facts that I'm just throwing out here, hopefully for your entertainment. And one of those facts I want to start with, I appreciate Molly's introduction, but I also want to tell you a couple more things about myself and my background. That's not really the slide. Anyway, greetings from Butte. Thank you for being here at the History Conference. This has nothing to do with my background. But I wanted to say this is the number of people that I had in my immediate family, and I think family history is the very best kind of history you can have. And I think that's had a lot of influence on me, but remember that not everything that happens in the past was good, and in fact, some of it was downright traumatizing. This, for example, is the number of siblings I had growing up. This, when I was born, this is the number of living grandparents, great-grandparents, and one great-great-grandmother. And these are all people that lived long enough for me to get to know as a youth, or in most cases as an adult. And I think this really is responsible for my lifelong interest in history. Molly mentioned my admiration for John Steinbeck this morning. And so I had already included this, and I left it in there. But this is the number of authors, specifically John Steinbeck, who led me to my fascination with Montana and my eventual move here in 1985. This is the approximate number of years before my arrival in Montana, when the first humans arrived in the place that we now call Montana, according to the archaeological evidence. And you'll notice that I just made 15,000 years of Montana history all about me. For those first peoples, this is the number of dogs the average family of 5 needed before horses replaced canines as the primary beast of burden in the early 18th century. 0 is the number of legitimate reasons I have for showing you a picture of my dog as part of this talk on Montana history. 2 is the number of times I'm going to do it anyway. And actually, I lied. Let's just make it 3. Okay, but back to the topic. This is the number of bison with whom those pre-contact dogs shared the North American continent for the arrival of Europeans. This is the number of hours that a Missouri River steamboat sometimes had to wait while a, quote, great brown flood of bison flowed endlessly past. This is the number of weeks it could take for a steamboat to travel the 2,300 miles upriver from St. Louis to Fort Benton. Or, as MHS State Archivist Rich Arstad one time noted, given the fractious nature of the river, it was likely anywhere from 2.5 months to not at all. This is the number of times that Rich got lost on this 2-hour field trip at a history conference held in Missoula. This is the number of days that Truman Everett spent, quote, in peril after getting separated from his group in Yellowstone in 1870. Of the many perils faced by, this is the number of days before we come together and meet again in West Yellowstone 1 year from now for the 49th annual Montana History Conference. Yes, there's a commercial thrown in here. Anyway, one of the perils that Everett faced was hungry wolves. This is the number of years that Yellowstone went without wolves from the time they were eradicated until they were reintroduced in the park in 1995. This is the rate of miles per hour at which a wolf can run. This is the rate in miles per hour at which you would want to run if a wolf is chasing you. The number of days it took John Coulter to run, then walk, from the Three Forks area to the Little Bighorn River after being told by a group of Blackfeet Indians to run for his life. The estimated number of Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho encamped along the Little Bighorn in June 1876 when Custer showed up looking for a fight. This is the estimated number of warriors among those so encamped. The size of Custer's 7th Cavalry, including 35 Indian scouts, who were mostly Crow and Arikara. This is the number of drawings in MHS's museum collection by Curley, who was one of Custer's Crow scouts. This is the age at which Northern Cheyenne ledger artist White Bear was imprisoned in Deer Lodge, where he produced the 3 drawings, now also in MHS Museum's collection. The length of time in years that White Bear spent in prison before being pardoned. Let's see. Oh, okay, 1. He spent 1 year in prison before he was pardoned. These are the number of Montanans who were imprisoned for sedition during World War I. And just to be fair to Deer Lodge, I want you to know that everyone in Deer Lodge is not, in fact, in prison. And we can find pigs all over the state. So if you've never been to the pig races in Bear Creek, you owe it to yourself to go. 0 is the total number of bars in Big Creek that don't offer pig races. Helena had 14 saloons in 1865, and the total number of bars and saloons that have called Butte home since its founding, its 157-year history, who knows? I don't think I can count that high. The year in which Henry Altebrand established the West Gallatin Irrigation Company and recruited Dutch farmers to raise barley to supply his Manhattan Malting Company. By the early 1900s, brewers from across the country, including Adolph Coors, purchased their malt from Altebrand's company. This is Montana's ranking as of 2018 in both numbers of breweries and beer consumed per capita. And some beer drinkers here, apparently. By the early Montana is also one of 3 states that continues to lead barley production for brewing. This is the number of years that Montanans had to go without taking a legal drink during Prohibition. Montanans enacted a statewide ban on alcohol 1 year before the 18th Amendment went into effect nationally. I've heard many stories, I can't say they're true, of course, but many stories that Butte did not bother to recognize Prohibition. So this may not apply to people here in Butte. This is the number of sober-looking U.S. presidents who served during Prohibition. The number of Montana counties named after U.S. presidents. The current number of counties in Montana. The original number of counties in Montana Territory, the current number of counties in Montana, the number of those Montana counties that have National Register of Historic Place signs from the Montana Historical Society, the number of National Register signs in Roosevelt County. And Roosevelt County has only 1/2 of a register sign because they share a sign with Macomb County for the Lewis and Clark Automobile Bridge near Wolf Point. The estimated size of the crowd that attended the opening celebration for the Lewis and Clark Bridge in 1930, it was the first free public crossing of the Missouri River for 350 miles between Fort Benton and Williston, North Dakota. It's not exactly a number, but this Wolf Point Bridge is also the largest single artifact in the Society's collection. And if you want to learn more about the Wolf Point Bridge, what you need to do is buy this one book, which is the Society's newest publication, and it also has not only information about the bridge, but 100 other artifacts. Or, to be a little more honest, given the fact that the title is very clear, that it's 101 objects, you would think that there would be 101 objects in the book. I counted, there are actually 239 objects included. That, I think, is because the book was written by historians who aren't necessarily known for their mathematical skills. But if you think 239 is a lot, yeah, the original shortlist included over 500 objects. You might be asking yourself, how did a bunch of mature professional individuals solve our differences over how we narrowed 500 down to 101? This is how it happened. So the number of Montana's finest authors who fought those fights was 21. And no matter how we like to think of ourselves, these are not actually the authors who were involved in this project. And while I can promise you that no animals were harmed in the production of this book, the same apparently was not true for editors. We went through 8 editors on this project, and I think that might be some kind of world record. I think they must have thought we were like the proverbial herding of cats. And while, for cat lovers, unfortunately, there are no cats included in the 101 objects, there is a dog. Oh, yeah, no cats included. But there is a dog. There's only one, but he's extremely cool. And while we're talking about the number 1, it might seem logical to conclude this kind of rambling talk with the number 1. I mean, most people think number 1, of course, is the best number. So it might lead us to ask the question, when it comes to Montana history, what ultimately is number 1? Well, there are many people who would argue in favor of Butte, including the person who gave Silver Bow County the first place in our license plate lineup. We all know that Butte is 1 mile high and 1 mile deep. We know that there's only one richest hill on earth, and there's definitely only one Our Lady of the Rockies. What you might not know, however, is that Butte originally had only one tree, and it qualified as a stop on the Seeing Butte car. So on that note, I'm going to wrap this up and let you people get back to enjoying your evening and honoring our awardees. But before I do that, I'm not actually going to end with the number 1. I'm going to end with the number 4. And that might seem a little random to you, but it's actually a very significant number, especially to those of us gathered here tonight. We have the 4 Gospels. We have the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which is really much too grim for an awards banquet, so maybe I'll just show you 4 more pictures of my dog. We have the 4 delegations of Salish who traveled from the Bitterroot to St. Louis seeking the white man's book. We have the 4 seasons. I don't know if anybody's here is old enough to get this joke. But really, we do have the 4 seasons, and we're enjoying a beautiful one right now. Of course, if you're a little more skeptical and you live in Montana, you might think you have Montana's 4 seasons, which are almost winter, winter, still winter, and road construction. We have the 4 cardinal directions, the 4 winds, and most importantly, 4 award winners that were gathered here tonight to say thank you for all of the incredible things you've done for Montana history. And with that, I'm going to sit down and turn it back over to Molly.